Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Matt from Matt's Bookshelf, and about 2 months ago, I hit 500 subscribers, and so I put in my community tab that I was thinking about doing a Q&A, and so that my subscribers could leave questions in that section for me to answer in this video. And yeah, that was a little while ago, and now I'm at 600, almost 700 subscribers, so guess whether to say 500 to 600 to possibly 700 subscriber Q&A. So my first question comes from Zen Book Review, and he asks, would you consider revisiting A Song of Ice and Fire books and making videos on your possible various theories on what will happen in the Woods of Winter? It would be very interesting to hear you theorize. Possibilities are endless considering the amount of cliffhangers in the end of A Dance with Dragons. So, as I've said in countless of my videos, I love the Song of Ice and Fire series. It's basically the series of books that has most shaped me as a person and what I want to do with the rest of my life. However, with recent events, with George R. Martin's post from 2 months ago, where he was basically saying that he feels bad for people who want the Winds of Winter, but he's working on all these other projects that no one really cares about. My interest with the series going further has sort of deflated a bit. I still love Song of Ice and Fire, and that will never change, but the fact that I was always pretty certain we would get Winds of Winter at some point, but now I'm, fairly pessimistic towards that, and so my interest in theories has kind of faded away to a certain extent. So I don't think I will ever do a theory video on A Song of Ice and Fire unless, we get confirmed evidence that The Winds of Winter will be coming out relatively soon. But I don't also have very original theories as well. I can point in directions. I really like Preston Jacobs' theories, his YouTube channel, all the stuff I greatly enjoy. I'm not in agree with everything that he says, but I do enjoy his content a lot. And, I'm not really as much into theorizing as a lot of people. I like reading theories, but when it comes to coming up with my own theories, I don't really have any original ones, other than the fact that I think Davos' wife has been dead the whole time. That's just my own personal theory, and yeah, that's about it, really. Next up, Education asks, in relation to the classic genre, which book would you say has achieved the status of being the representative of Irish, French, Russian, Victorian, and American literature, each respectively? Thank you. So I think you might think I'm a little more well-read than I actually am. I don't really feel qualified to answer what I think is the definitive book of each culture, but I can say what my favorite book is from each of these cultures, if you will. So Irish would be Ulysses, maybe my favorite book of all time. French, I've not read a lot of French novels, so I can't speak on that at all. Russian, Master and Margarita, and I've also read Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. Victorian, Dorian Gray is probably my favorite with there. And American literature, I mean, if you're speaking of in the classic genre, it might be The Beautiful and Damned. So yeah, those are my personal favorites, but I would not be confident in saying that they are the definitive book of each of these respective cultures, except for maybe Ulysses being the definitive Irish book, since they have a whole holiday around this book. Next up, Stan Brown 32 asks, what are your favorite books from childhood? What were your favorite books as an adult? So this is a great question. My favorite book when I was a child was a book I read for summer reading in 8th grade. It's a book called Freak the Mighty, and I never really liked reading until I got into this book, and the general premise of the story is that it follows two kids, I think in late elementary school. One is very tall and one is very short, and it sounds really stupid when I describe the plot, but they are abnormally tall and abnormally short for their ages. And it comes from the perspective of the kid who's very tall, but he's kind of a gentle giant in a way. And basically the two team up where the younger kid has a bit more violent tendencies, and he sort of controls the bigger kid to fight bullies and stuff. And it's a very endearing story. And I'm gonna spoil the ending here, but it's a testament to how great it is, because I haven't read the book in 10 years at this point, but I still remember a lot of the plot points in it. And the ending, so spoilers for the ending, basically involves the smaller kid has a heart condition, and he eventually dies from it, but he knew he was going to die years in advance. But it's a testament to how brave he was throughout his whole life, and that ending really stuck with me, because it sort of changes the perspective of the bigger kid in it, and he starts to realize he was very brave, and the fact that he kept this personal, it just added a layer of complexity to the character who could have been seen as a one-dimensional short kid with a Napoleon complex. No, it's much deeper than that, and yeah, it is just a tremendous book. And if you are a younger audience member, I would recommend reading it. And as for my favorite books, my first favorite books, I should say, as an adult, I'll say probably high school like the first books I liked in high school were like The Odyssey and Fahrenheit 451 and like Romeo and Juliet, which I read as well in high school. And then more recently, like during pandemic era, when I was in my early 20s, Beautiful and the Damned was a huge book for me that got me into the classics, and Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce is another book that got me into reading more classics. Oh Lord asks, when will you read Infinite Jest? I do not know the answer to that. I am not opposed to reading Infinite Jest at some point, but it's not like high on my radar of books I want to read immediately, because I have a lot of books right now that I want to read, that I bought, that I should be reading, and no, I have no interest right now in reading it. I'm not opposed to it, as I said, but I can't really, it probably will not be this year, I can pretty safely say. Colorless Wonderland asked, how does it feel to know your friend, Tyler, is cooler than you? This is not grammatically correct at all. I hope that this person is not like an English teacher or something, because that is a pretty horrible, horrendous typo, and I feel bad, hypothetically, if this kid was I'm assuming, he seems like he's 13 probably, so he's probably not an English teacher, but if he was, I feel bad for the students, because that is an egregious typo right there. But I also don't know anyone named Tyler, which is interesting. I know Taylor Talks, and I'm going to show a clip right here to show how much cooler he is than me.
Na 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 na, hey hey hey, goodbye goodbye, na 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 na, na 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 na.
That is a very interesting perspective, Taylor, and yeah, I don't really want to comment on that any further than it's already been stated. Colorless Wonderland also asked, what books are you most looking forward to reading and why? So one book I'm most looking forward to reading is probably Henry Miller's Tropic of Cancer. The more I read expat literature, the more I'm certain it is like my favorite genre of books. I just finished The Recognitions a couple months ago, and this is my next expat literature book. And I also have another book that's an expat book that I cannot think of either the name of the author or the book title, and it's in my closet over there, and I'm not going to go get it. It's a woman. She lived in Massachusetts. I cannot think of her name though right now, which is very unfortunate. She wrote the play Ariel. She wrote the poem Ariel. I'm gonna look it up in a second. Sylvia Plath, and the book is The Bell Jar. I have that in my closet over there. I'm excited to read that as well. I think that is also considered expat writing, too. So those are the two big books. I also have The Iliad, which I haven't read yet. I've read The Odyssey twice or 3 times. I've not read the Iliad, but Drunza recommended this translation, so I will hopefully be getting to that very soon as well. And finally, from my Instagram, Keo Rosa asked, you mentioned in a video that you studied abroad. What was the most difficult thing about that, and what's your best reading of 2022 so far? First of all, I'm glad you asked about my study abroad experiences, because I could literally talk about that forever. The most difficult thing studying abroad for me was sort of the cultural differences. Mainly, so my 2 study abroad experiences were in Oxford, summer 2018, and Dublin, fall 2019. And they're both English-speaking countries, so that was obviously helpful for me. But there are cultural differences that are pretty jarring, especially when you get off the airplane and you're extremely tired because you haven't slept the whole night, and you have to figure out how to get to your university through the airport, and it's just a pain in the neck. But like as one funny cultural difference story that was pretty embarrassing for me at the time, this is like my first 2 weeks in Dublin. They had the Irish Gaelic football finals, and so I went to a pub with my friends, and like we met up with a bunch of like 30 other Erasmus students at the time, and at this pub, and I wore a shirt with a guitar on it, and I didn't think anything of it, and I went to the pub, and I realized that the shirt is an American flag in the style of a guitar. But when I saw it, I just see it as a guitar shirt. And then so all the other kids there were all from Europe, and they're just like, oh, look at the American, he's wearing the American shirt. And I'm like, I couldn't really explain that I didn't see it as an American shirt. I saw it as a guitar shirt. but that was like one thing where I immediately get off the impression I was like this hoorah American patriot when I do love America, but not to that degree where I just wear American memorabilia like wherever I go. But that was pretty crazy at the time. But you overcome it, and you take your L's and you overcome it. But definitely the culture stuff is the most difficult part. But if you keep an open mind to it, and if you're willing to overcome some failures at times, it's ultimately rewarding in the end. And I don't think there's always risks with doing it, but if you have an interest in doing semester abroad stuff, I would highly recommend it. I think if you even smallest interest possible, you should definitely at least look into it, because it is just the greatest thing. And as for my best reading experiences of 2022 so far, you can check out my videos on Virginia Woolf's To Lighthouse and my video on William Gaddis' The Recognitions. Both have non-spoiler sections. Those are two of my favorite books I've read so far in 2022. But a book that I read that is also phenomenal, I didn't do a video on, is Hannah Ken's Burial Rites, which is recommended to me by a friend. This book follows like the true life story of Agnes Magnusdóttir, who is the last woman executed in Iceland. And in Icelandic culture, she is seen as being kind of like a demon or like an evil figure. But this woman, Hannah Ken, who's from Australia, did her semester abroad. Speaking of semester abroad, did her semester abroad in Iceland and did some more research into this woman and wanted to tell the story from her perspective. And it's really great. It came out in 2013. It reminds me a lot of a movie, Calvary, which is one of my favorite movies ever. And it's themes of like the brutality of the world in contrast to religion. Does religion and spirituality have a place in a world that can be so brutal? So he is living with this family while awaiting her execution, and she has this right to talk to a priest and find some sort of like spiritual forgiveness through the priest before her execution. And the priest's name is Toady. And there's like this great scene where he's saying like, oh, he says God and I say God, but our interpretations of God are so fundamentally different that we might as well be saying different words to each other. And that was just brilliant to me. This book is really great. And I just can't recommend this book enough. I would say read this. This is definitely one of the best reading experiences of 22 for me so far. And I might do a video on it at some point, but unfortunately I read it a couple months ago, so I feel like that has kind of passed, but I can easily see myself rereading this again in a year or so from now. So that was my Q&A. If you have any other questions for me, leave them in the comments of this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll try to get more into making videos. I was just in finals last month and trying to get my book to a presentable degree before I publish it, so I've just been busy with that stuff. That would explain like the lack of videos of late. But yeah, so thank you for watching this video, and check out my friends Colorless Wonderland and Drunzo. And yeah, stay tuned for the next video. Thank you and goodbye.